Tēnā tātou katoa, good evening. The fire that forced the evacuation of more than 100 homes around Christchurch's Port Hills continues to burn this evening. Weary firefighters are suiting up for another night of battling the blaze in hot, dry and windy conditions. But Fire and Emergency appears to be winning the fight and the hearts and minds of locals. Our reporter Juliet Speedy is on the scene and she joins us now live. Juliet, what's the latest from the firefighters on the ground there?
The message is that this fire may look a lot better than it did 24 hours ago, but nobody should become complacent. And that's because they know that things can change in literally an instant with flare-ups or changes in wind or weather. And that's with nighttime approaching and less of a capacity to fight the fire because they cannot fly at night. Look, it's been nearly 30 hours of battling this enormous blaze, and there's certainly no end in sight yet. A thick blanket of smoke today, providing anything but comfort for Christchurch. As darkness fell last night, the helicopters were grounded and the fire roared into the sky. More than 100 households had fled their homes as the raging flames and black smoke imposed itself over the city. At dawnbreak, it was clear to see the resulting damage and remaining threat. The fight from the sky could begin again.
Scary, real scary.
Those hills are so ridiculously dry at the moment. We've been very wary for a few months now and worried that this might happen.
Residents, many who have been through the same traumatic experience 7 years ago, and hoping this one won't linger as long.
That was a really stressful time. We were out for over 2 weeks and yeah, it's stressful and it's worrying.
This is hard, Mahi. This is really hard for a lot of you that have been through this before, and I just want to acknowledge that.
Dry conditions and strong winds being watched second by second by those battling it.
This wind isn't helping us. It has died down a wee bit, but yeah, the wind's really a big issue for us.
A local state of emergency remains in place, bringing hundreds of responders on the ground. 27 fire trucks, 14 helicopters and 2 fixed-wing aircraft spreading retardant. Government officials arrived this morning, then surveyed the damage by air.
Of course it looks bad because it's a big fire. Without a doubt, it's a tough job up there for them, but it also looks very good in terms of the work that they're doing, the containment.
And it's a job that won't end anytime soon.
Crews are working tirelessly. The fire is still not considered to be contained at this stage. It is clear that this fire is going to be a long duration event.
And rubberneckers, also known as disaster tourists, are still being urged to stay away.
No one needs your silly TikTok, your Insta, your Snapchat, none of that. Stay away, let the professionals do their job.
At its peak, the blaze was 650 hectares with a 14-kilometre perimeter.
Our main efforts are to protect houses and not so much the burn area. So we're putting our efforts into protecting, the things that our communities value the most.
And what to value more than people, with no lives lost.
The speed of the response and the speed of the mayors and their decisions that they've taken has meant that there has been a world-class response to this fire event in Port Hills.
Residents who are temporarily homeless and rightfully anxious, but also immensely grateful.
We were affected last time and I think you are all doing a fantastic job. The response has been amazing.
And with darkness soon to fall, there's a flickering ember of optimism that this time the outcome might be better too. And Michael, in breaking news, we have just heard that one home has been destroyed in this blaze. That is, one home has now burnt as a result of this blaze. Now, we will bring you any pictures we get of that if we get them over the coming hour and certainly in the coming days. But in breaking news, one home has been destroyed in this blaze. But that can't take away from what has been an outstanding response from Fire and Emergency New Zealand, not only in the fast and heroic efforts of battling this blaze, but also in the fact that the care and escorting the community around the place. I've seen many of the community being escorted and comforted today, and it wasn't always that way 7 years ago, so it's clear first responders have learnt a lot since then. So we will bring you any more about that breaking news later in the hour, Michael.
Thanks very much. That's Juliet Speedy live in Westmoreland, Christchurch.
The Christchurch Adventure Park has also found itself caught up in the fire a month before it was due to host an international mountain biking event.
The park has now been dealt a triple whammy of blows: COVID, the 2017 blaze and multi-million-dollar court action from neighbours. Nick Trowbridge is on the fringe of the park. And Nick, how has it been affected?
Yeah, good evening, Mike. Welcome to a fairly mellow-looking Christchurch Adventure Park, at least in comparison to what we saw earlier today. The smoke has pretty much dissipated here. There are still plenty of hot spots around, and of course you heard in Juliet's story warnings that this is not close to being over, perhaps evidenced by the fact that this is as close as we can get, and we are a wee way away from the park. But what I can tell you is when we arrived in the middle of the night last night, Mike, it was absolute chaos. An ominous sight amongst the smoke and flames. Christchurch Adventure Park in the middle of a firestorm. This is the sight thousands of Cantabs feared, an out-of-control inferno licking at the park's attractions.
The fire has breached into the Adventure Park. It is still uncertain how far that has gone down into the park, but we are working closely with management in there to ensure the infrastructure is kept safe, and at this stage there is no damage to any infrastructure.
But the developments no one wanted to hear. This morning we were told the flames were at bay.
It's on the boundary of the Adventure Park at the moment. You'd have to speak to Fens in terms of the impact of that, but at the moment it is contained.
Clearly they weren't. Those flames, yeah, they look to be past the border, I'm sorry to say. Now attention turns to saving the park's facilities.
We're working with the park management throughout this event and ensuring that we work together to maintain a good cordon around those infrastructure assets.
It's insult to injury after being devastated in 2017. The park, majority owned by the City Council's development arm, paid out $14 million to homeowners after its running chairlift spread the flames last time. The Mayor confirming those debts have just been paid.
We've been committed to it this far from the last fire. We've just got out of our insurance stuff from last time, and we'll just have to see what happens going forward. So we'll stand behind it.
Attention will now turn to keeping the facility financially viable after COVID, a payout and now 2 fires.
We'll have to wait and see how far. I'm sure there is some damage. There's damage at the top of the hill, how far down it's gone.
The heat's on to save one of Christchurch's most loved attractions.
Well, kia ora, Nick. You've just heard from the park itself. What did they have to say tonight?
Yeah, hi Sam. They have just released a statement basically about the damage that has been sustained. It appears to be pretty much isolated to the bushes around the park, the trees, particularly the pines. They will have come down all over the track, so obviously that's not ideal, but there's more too. There is zip lining that is done in this park behind us, and it appears some of those lines have been affected as well. The chairlift at the moment appears to be okay. There's also sort of a bike shed down the bottom that you hire, a shop and a cafe and bar as well. They appear to be okay too. That event that was due to be held next month, that's Crankworks. It's an international event, sort of dirt jumping, downhill mountain biking, that sort of thing. That is not very far away, and you've got to be questioning whether that will go ahead. And the reason you'd be questioning it is because in 2017, when that fire hit in February, the park wasn't able to reopen until December, several months later. A really hard road, and certainly they may well be staring down the barrel of a bit of a grim time ahead this time as well. Sam.
Okay, Nick, thank you for the update.